Hey everyone, and welcome back. This week, we're going to cut through all the noise. We're not talking about price, we're talking about progress. We're going to look at what's actually being built day in and day out across the Cardano ecosystem. It's a really great way to see what's happening on the ground. Okay, let's get right into it.
So you have to start with this question, right? What does a healthy, thriving blockchain ecosystem really look like? Is it all about those big, splashy headlines and major announcements? Or is it something else? Is it the slow, steady, and sometimes quiet work of hundreds of different teams all pushing forward at the same time? I think the real story is in those details, so that's what we're going to explore.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by getting a feel for the overall pulse of the ecosystem. Then we'll dive into how builders are expanding the financial frontiers. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of strengthening the core infrastructure, which is super important. We'll celebrate some huge milestones, and then at the very end, we'll connect all the dots.
So let's start with that pulse. You got to remember, none of these projects are off on their own little islands. They're all interconnected. Every single update, every bit of code, every new idea, it all contributes to the collective heartbeat of the entire network.
First up, let's talk about finance. This is where builders are getting seriously creative. They're coming up with brand new tools to help you unlock liquidity and find new ways to earn yield, things that just weren't really possible before. And a really cool concept driving a lot of this is called yield tokenization. Now, I know, yield tokenization sounds kind of complicated, right? A little intimidating maybe, but the actual idea behind it is incredibly simple, and frankly, it's brilliant. Just imagine you have an asset that's staked and earning you rewards. This process lets you split that asset into two parts, the original thing you own and all the future rewards it's going to generate.
And here's where it gets real. A project called Atlas is already putting this into practice for people staking Iagon. So here's how it works. You deposit your staked tokens, and Atlas splits them into a principal token, or PT, and a yield token, the YT. The best way to think about it is with the apple tree analogy. The principal token is your tree. You still own it, it's not going anywhere. The yield token is basically a voucher for this year's apple harvest. And here's the magic. You can sell that voucher right now for cash without ever having to sell your tree. It's just an amazing way to get your hands on some liquidity without giving up your core asset.
So that's one side of things, building these really innovative, sophisticated new financial tools. But progress isn't always about creating something from scratch. Sometimes it's just about creating really powerful reasons for people to use the awesome tools that we already have. And this is a perfect example of that. Minswap, a major decentralized exchange on Cardano, is throwing 100,000 ADA into the prize pool for their Boost Week trading competition. I mean, come on, that's how you get people excited, right? That's how you drive trading volume and bring more liquidity to the platform. It just gets people involved. Okay, so all of these flashy DeFi apps and big reward pools are awesome, but they're kind of like the penthouse of a skyscraper. They're only as strong as the foundation they sit on. So now we're going to go down to the ground level and look at that critical, behind-the-scenes work that makes sure everything just works. And this right here from Flux Point Studios is such a great example of transparent development. They're basically giving everyone a heads up. For their Perpetuals product, they're doing some work under the hood, so they're saying, hey, if you're not comfortable, just switch it off for a bit. Same thing with their T-Mode, which lets you pay fees with other tokens. They're saying, we're making some tweaks, so maybe just use paper mode and see how it goes. And that quote really says it all. It's best to switch it off until the update is live. A team saying that isn't trying to hide anything. They're being upfront and honest, and that builds a massive amount of trust. It shows they respect their users, and that's really the bedrock of any project that's built to last. Now, when we talk about infrastructure, it's not just about code and servers. It's also about governance, how we all make decisions together. As Voltaire rolls out, we'll all be able to delegate our voting power to these DReps. But that brings up a huge new problem, right? There are going to be hundreds of them. How on earth are you supposed to find the one that actually represents what you believe in? Well, check this out. SyncAI has an absolutely beautiful solution. Their Explorer tool makes this whole complex thing as easy as a Google search. You can literally just type in a question in plain English, like, show me all the DReps who vote less than 90% of the time, and bam, there's your list. This is a total game changer for making decentralized governance something anyone can actually participate in. Okay, so we've seen new financial tools and a stronger foundation. Now for the really fun part, celebrating some big wins. This is where all that hard work starts to pay off, and you can see it in real, measurable progress. And I just love this motto from Mekka Labs. I think it perfectly captures the spirit here. Faith, focus, and forward motion. It's all about having that belief, staying on track, and just relentlessly pushing forward. That's exactly what all these projects are doing. And you can see that forward motion right here. Mekka Labs has blown past the halfway point on their NFT mint. But what's so cool about this is that it's not just about collecting digital art. Every single one of these NFTs that gets minted helps fund their real-world Bitcoin mining infrastructure. They're literally building a bridge between the digital and the physical worlds. Here's another huge milestone, this one from Chakra Agents. They took a massive chunk of their LMA tokens, nearly a quarter of the entire supply, and poof, they're gone forever. They burned them, which means they are permanently locked out of circulation. This is a huge deflationary move and a really powerful signal of the team's long-term commitment. But, momentum isn't just about on-chain metrics. It's also about people, education, and community. Nucast just hit an incredible milestone, over 1 million impressions on their content in just the last year. Think about that. That's 1 million touch points, 1 million moments where someone learned something new about Cardano. That's how you build a strong, informed community from the ground up. Okay, so we've looked at DeFi, infrastructure, governance, NFTs, community, a bit of everything. So let's take a step back and try to connect all these dots. What's the big picture here? What does all this activity actually tell us? Well, it tells us that a truly healthy ecosystem is firing on all cylinders. It's not just good at one thing. You're seeing that high-level financial innovation from teams like Atlas. At the same time, you're seeing the core foundation get stronger and more user-friendly thanks to projects like Flux and SyncAI. And on top of all that, you have the tangible, real-world growth shown by the milestones from Mekka, Chakra, and Nucast. It's progress everywhere you look. So what this really shows is that progress isn't about one single event. It's the sum of all these different parts, all these builders moving forward together. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. With all these builders pushing so hard on so many different fronts, which one of these areas, the new financial tools, the core infrastructure, or the community growth, do you think is going to be the one that really defines Cardano's next chapter? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me.